In 1930, Manhattan's skyline changed forever. 102 stories of steel rose from a patch of crowded streets as the world plunged into the Depression. The work was an overwhelming physical challenge. Investors demanded the impossible, that they build the tallest tower on Earth, faster than rivals, whatever it cost. But how did crews set 57,000 tons of steel in just 13 months, risking everything against gravity, time, and disaster? The true cost and the secrets behind that miracle of speed are hiding in plain sight. Steel began arriving by the trainload, destined for a plot of land measuring 200 by 425 feet. Barely enough room to swing a crane, let alone orchestrate a project of this ambition. The goal was to stack 57,000 tons of steel into a frame soaring 1,250 feet high, with 102 stories rising above the city's rooftops. Each beam had to fit within a tolerance of fractions of an inch. Even the slightest misalignment could throw off entire floors, threatening the integrity of the tower. On the ground, the challenge was relentless. Manhattan's crowded streets left no space for stockpiles. Every delivery had to be timed to the minute, unloaded, and hoisted skyward without delay. Temporary railways snaked through the rising structure, shuttling steel and supplies from one floor to the next. Workers operated in a constant choreography, threading columns and girders together as fast as they arrived. The numbers told a story of scale almost beyond imagination. 4 massive columns at the base were designed to support more than 10 million pounds each. More than 6,500 windows would eventually be set into the curtain wall. But first, every piece of the skeleton had to lock into place with absolute precision. There was no room for error, no slack in the schedule, and no margin for waste. In the heart of Midtown, a steel giant was taking shape, one floor at a time, each piece a testament to the audacity of its builders. Investors bankrolling the Empire State Building faced a brutal equation. Every week, the project lagged. Tens of thousands of dollars bled away in interest, wages, and idle materials. The clock was not just ticking for pride. It was ticking for survival. John Jacob Raskob and Alfred E. Smith, at the helm of Empire State Incorporated, watched rival towers claw for the sky. The Chrysler Building, gleaming with its spire, had already claimed the title of the world's tallest. Just downtown, 40 Wall Street threatened to edge ahead. In this race, second place meant empty offices and vanishing rent checks. The Great Depression's shadow fell across every ledger. Unemployment soared, but on this site, thousands found work, if the money did not run out first. The May 1st, 1931 deadline was not just a goal. It was a lifeline tied to the start of lease cycles. A missed date meant floors sitting vacant, no tenants to pay off the $41 million spent on steel and stone. Detailed charts tracked every crew and delivery, each day shaved from the schedule, saving a fortune in carrying costs. Pressure from the top filtered down to every worker. The relentless pace was not just about ambition. It was about survival in a city where fortunes could vanish overnight. Delay was not an option. The only way forward was up, and fast. That urgency set the rhythm for the men on the steel, every beam, every bolt, every shift choreographed to keep the project and its backers afloat. Every morning, the steel frame became a stage for a cast of thousands, each man moving in time with the relentless pace set from above. At the heart of the operation were the high steel crews, Mohawk ironworkers from Kanawake, Irish and Italian immigrants, and men who called themselves skeeters. They walked beams barely wider than a boot sole, guiding columns into place with nothing but taglines and a silent language of hand signals. Below them, the city churned. But on the skeleton, every step mattered. the rhythm never broke. As soon as a column was set, bolt-up gangs swarmed in, lining up holes by feel alone, even when wind and fog blurred the world to gray. Riveting gangs followed close behind, their work a kind of industrial ballet. One man, the heater, fished glowing rivets from a portable furnace, tossing them through open air to a catcher waiting on the next girder. A split-second catch. Then the rivet was slammed into its hole, hammered flat by the bucker before it lost its heat. Each team could drive hundreds of rivets in a shift, the sound echoing across the city like a drum line. Coordination was everything. If one man was missing from a riveting gang, the whole crew stood down. Their timing was so precise, their trust so absolute, that an outsider could not simply fill in. Floor by floor, this choreography unfolded at a speed no one thought possible. On average, the frame climbed 4.5 stories a week. In September 1930, the crews set a blistering pace, 14 floors in just 10 days. Some weeks, it seemed the building grew faster than the city could watch. At the peak, more than 3,400 men worked the site, but only a fraction braved the highest steel. Their work was measured in production charts and daily logs. But the real record was in the rhythm of their hands, the seamless flow from column to bolt to rivet, repeated thousands of times a day. The Empire State Building rose not just from blueprints and budgets, but from the practiced motions of men who made danger routine and speed their only safety net. Sudden gust, a foot placed wrong, sometimes that was all it took. One morning in 1930, a Mohawk ironworker climbed out onto a girder more than 700 feet above the street. He moved with the practiced ease of a man who had spent years in the sky, guiding a swaying beam into place while the wind pressed hard against his back. Around him, the city stretched out in silence, broken only by the clang of steel and the distant shouts from below. There was no harness, no net, only the narrow width of the beam and his own balance. A slip, a lost grip, and the worker vanished in an instant, falling past 60 unfinished stories before coming to rest far below. The crew paused, eyes searching the empty space where he had stood. They spoke little. A foreman signaled for the body to be lowered by taglines, the same ropes used to guide steel. There was no investigation, no safety review. The men gathered themselves, checked their tools, and went back to work. Schedules had to be kept. The building would not wait. In the company ledger, the event was reduced to a single line. A name, a date, the word fall. Next to it, a sum marked out for the family, often no more than a few months' pay. No mention of how many children waited at home, or the journey that had brought him from Kanawake or Brooklyn or Cork. The official record listed 5 deaths for the entire project. But among the workers, rumors always ran higher. Some said 10, others more. Immigrant names, Mohawk names, some never entered in any book at all. No monument marks the spot. The only trace is a number in an old ledger and the memory carried by those who kept climbing. For every story added to the Empire State Building, there was a risk measured not just in steel and stone, but in lives. The men who built the frame understood this bargain. They worked on, knowing that a single misstep could turn a day's labor into a line on a page, a cost calculated and forgotten as the city kept rising around them. Every steel frame on our skyline today stands on decisions about speed and sacrifice. As cities compete to build higher and faster, the question endures: how much invisible labor and how many names will we trade for progress? The story isn't finished. Whose legacy gets remembered next?